Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty show. And today we are live going at the 2025 rookie class. Now, some of you may still be debating whether it's time to go into rebuild mode or to push your chips in to contend. I know that it's not always an easy decision to make, but what you need to do really is take a look at your record, take a look at your max points for as well. So on your sleeper app, if your league is using sleeper, this is where you would go to determine where you're at. And so let me go into one of my leagues and I will show you right here what we need to get for you to determine best if it's time to go into rebuild mode or to go into a contending mode and make some moves to go into contention. Now, let me see if I can bring up the details here. This just shows points for, points against. All right. Well, it's not showing here on the desktop. The desktop on Sleeper isn't exactly the greatest. So this one just shows that. Yeah. Wish it was a little better on the desktop, but unfortunately, I guess it's not. But what I'm getting at is that if you go onto your Sleeper app and you see the standings, there's a little spot where you can click on view details. And when you click on view details, scroll over to the right and you can see max points for. Now, hopefully your league's using max points for to determine the draft order for your 2025 draft. If not, I would heavily consider talking to your commissioner and bringing it up in the chat to your league mates so that you do use max points for determining your draft order. Now, when we get into the 2025 class, the importance of this is so that you know which positions are more heavily, how would I say it? I'm going to bring up my 2025 early rankings right now for the 2025 class. And so let's see here. I've got this to share for you. And let's do this and it up right now. So you can see at the top of the board, I've got a couple of wide receivers, Ted McMillan and Luther Burden. Those guys they came into the 25 season as the top wide receivers, and they have done nothing to disappoint so far. So they're still up at the top. The key guy here is Luther Burden. He hasn't excited as much as Ted McMillan, but he's still a very solid wide receiver. What I really want to get into is the next couple of guys, Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck. If you watch college football at all, you know what went on Saturday night. Just an amazing, amazing show. First of all, from Jalen Milroe in the first half, and then from Carson Beck in the second half of that game. It was Georgia, the number 2 ranked team, riding their 42-game winning streak into the matchup and then taking on the Crimson Tide in Alabama and Jalen Milroe, who I personally moved up the boards just a week or two ago, way higher than anybody else. I had him up to number 3. Now, the critics are questioning his passing ability. I'm looking at the running ability. To me, he's very similar to Jalen Hurts. Hurts was very scrutinized for his passing ability at Alabama. He ended up transferring over to Oklahoma when Tua took over for him at Alabama. And so Jalen Hurts obviously has shown in the NFL that he's more than capable as a passer. He's not lighting it up like, say, Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen as much so, but he is more than adequate when he has decent receivers. Obviously, he struggled last week with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith out of the lineup, but over the course of Hurts's career, he has definitely improved as a passer, and I see the same thing happening here with Jalen Milroe. This season, he has shown up as a passer, as you would have seen had you watched that game Saturday night. He was going downtown to Ryan Williams, his 17-year-old freshman wide receiver there at Alabama. And after Georgia came all the way back from down 28-0 to take the lead late in the fourth quarter with just over 2.5 minutes to go, Jalen Milroe came back, first play, boom, 70-yarder to Ryan Williams, and the Crimson Tide ended up hanging on to win that game 41-34. It was just, I'm telling you, that was just lights out. A great college football game, exactly what college football is all about. So those two quarterbacks are at number 3 and 4 for me. Ashton Jeanty has moved up to number 5 overall in my tier 2. Ollie Gordon is the one who dropped down. I had him at number 5, and he has dropped all the way down to RB6 in the class because he has just disappointed this year so far. I'm still leaving him in there. I mean, he's definitely worth a second-round pick at this point, but I've just seen too much from Jeanty, too much from the next guy, Omarion Hampton, who I moved way up the board from 14 to number 6. Then Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver from Ohio State, had a solid week. Then you got the 2 running backs from Ohio State. So you can see Ohio State is plenty loaded in this upcoming draft class. Next up down here, I've got Quinn Ewers. Ewers has been injured and out of the lineup the last few weeks. Arch Manning has taken over at Texas and has just done a fantastic job moving the Longhorns up to, well, they were up to number 1. Now with Alabama's big win, they have dropped back down. Bama moved up to 1. But the point is that Arch has done nothing really to drop the Longhorns' prospects of getting into the playoffs while Ewers has been out. If you look at the very bottom, I have moved Travis Hunter into the rankings. Travis Hunter, of course, the dynamic athlete at Colorado with Shadir Sanders, Deion's kid. And Travis Hunter is a heavy candidate for the Heisman this year now, playing both ways, just dominating the field. He is now, wide receiver 1, 2, 3, wide receiver 4. There's going to be so much hype around this guy. So I just have him in relation. I think these guys will get drafted. I don't know if his talent as a wide receiver is quite there yet. He's going to need to work on his game to become a more efficient pro, if that's what he decides to play in the pros. Because once you get there, I mean, he kind of does have to decide. I know his coach played both ways at some points in his career, but really wasn't that dynamic as a wide receiver. I mean, he only had a few opportunities there in San Francisco and then in Dallas. Did get some touchdowns in the course of his NFL career as a wide receiver, but really wasn't a consistent producing wide receiver. So we'll see with Travis Hunter what ends up happening there. We've got Isaiah Bond, a wide receiver from Texas there at 13. Next, tier 4, that's where I put Ollie Gordon into. Then we have the top tight end in the class, and that's Colston Loveland out of Michigan, and then Nick Singleton, the running back out of Penn State. Down to tier 5, we've got Kyron Lacey, Tez Johnson, Trey Harris, and Nick Anderson. So heavily loaded up with the wide receivers there. Those are wide receivers you'll be looking to grab in round 2 of your rookie drafts next offseason. So watch those guys. I'm sure a couple of those guys will separate themselves from each other. And then you have the combine. You got a lot of things coming up here that could separate these guys. And then finally down here, tier 6, we got Kyle McCord, who transferred from Ohio State to Syracuse. lighting it up. Cam Ward, also very nice Heisman prospect, so watch him. He transferred from Oregon State down all the way to the East Coast and Miami's undefeated right now. Very questionable game if you happen to catch the ending of that one with Virginia Tech, where there was a questionable Hail Mary that Virginia Tech almost came up with, then didn't. It depends what you think with your own eyes. Go check that one out on Twitter if you can. Finally, Jackson Dart, quarterback from Ole Miss. Ole Miss had a struggle with Kentucky and went down at home to them, so they fell in the rankings from number 6 down into, I think they're ranked 11th right now. And then Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. A couple guys who dropped out, just so you keep their names on your radar. We've got Evan Stewart, wide receiver from Oregon, and Connor Weigman, quarterback from Texas A&M. Both have struggled so far. Weigman's been hurt, and so you can't totally dismiss him, but it's going to be tough for him to move up too far. I don't see him as a first-round quarterback anymore. Xavier Henderson is somebody from Cincinnati, to keep your eye on. He has been producing pretty well there for the Bearcats, so check out his highlights and keep an eye out for him. He's looking like a 3rd, 4th round wide receiver right now for us in our rookie drafts, as well as in the NFL draft, actually. So there you have it. That's my quick update on the college guys, and just use these rankings to get a gauge on your values for your first round picks next season when you're determining whether to push your chips in for this year or turn into a rebuild. So if you're trying to determine that, if you are in the bottom half of your league at this point in the season, we're already a quarter of the way in, you should have a good gauge on where you stand with the rest of your league mates. Now, it's possible you're only sitting at 1-3, maybe 0-4 even. Hopefully not 0-4 and still thinking you can contend. But, there's been a lot of big injuries, and some guys are coming back. But if you had a big injury to like Puka, who's not going to be back till later in the season, maybe you had Rashid Rice, and so it's just not looking good for you. Then it's time to turn to not necessarily a full-on rebuild, but you definitely want to make your first-round pick better next season. So trade off some of those big assets. Puka, you'd want to hang on until right before he comes back and then unload him to a contender. Just be realistic with your teams. If you've got a question, you can always send your roster over to me at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty show, or become a member on my Patreon here so you can check out my college rankings, also the rest of my dynasty rankings, and make decisions that way. But you can send your rosters over to me, and I can give you a roster review, let you know if I think you should be pushing your chips in or if you should be looking towards the 2025 season. All right. Be sure to smash the like and subscribe. That's how we keep this show rolling. Tomorrow, we're going to be back in the Birdhouse with Matt English. We're going to go over some wild trades that went on in the past week, and so that can help you out in determining some of your players, what you should do with them. And otherwise, make sure you smash that like and subscribe, and never stop working.